The Rape of Nanking by Iris Cheng, The Forgotten Holocaust of World War II, page 48 to 49. And that's it, just 48 and 49. Weakly, their limbs twitched, and the laborers were busy working in total silence as in a pantomime. In the dark, one could barely see the opposite bank of the river. On the pier was a field of glistening mud under the moon's dim light. Wow! That's all blood. After a while, the coolies had done their job of dragging corpses, and the soldiers lined them up along the river. Rat-a-tat! Machine gun fire could be heard. The coolies fell backwards into the river and were swallowed by the raging currents. The pantomime was over. A Japanese officer at the scene estimated that 20,000 persons had been executed. From the Japanese military correspondent Omada Yukio, who saw Chinese prisoners brought to Hsiakwan and lined up along the river, those in the first row were beheaded. Those in the second row were forced to dump the severed bodies into the river before they themselves were beheaded. The killing went on non-stop from morning until night, but they were only able to kill 2,000 persons in this way. The next day, tired of killing in this fashion, they set up machine guns. Two of them raked a crossfire at the lined-up prisoners. Rat-a-tat-tat, rat-a-tat-tat, triggers were pulled. The prisoners fled into the water, but no one was able to make it to the other shore. From the Japanese photojournalist Kawano Hiroki, before the ceremony of entering the city, I saw 50 to 100 bodies drifting down the Yangtze River. Did they die in battle, or were they killed after being taken prisoner, or were they slaughtered civilians? I remember there was a pond just outside of Nanking. It looked like a sea of blood with splendid colors. If only I had color film, what a shocking shot that would have been. Looked like a sea of blood with splendid colors. Sasaki Motomasa, a Japanese military correspondent at Nanking, observed, I've seen piled up bodies in the Great Quake in Tokyo, but nothing can be compared to this. Next, the Japanese turned their attention to the women. Women suffered most. Ta Kokoro Kozo, a former soldier in the 114th Division of the Japanese Army in Nanking, recalled, no matter how young or old, they all could not escape the fate of being raped. We sent out coal trucks from Hsiakwan to the city streets and villages to seize a lot of women, and then each of them was allocated to 15 to 20 soldiers for sexual intercourse and abuse. Surviving Japanese veterans claimed that the army had officially outlawed the rape of enemy women, but rape remained so deeply embedded in Japanese military culture and superstition that nobody took the rules serious. Many believed that raping virgins would make them more powerful in battle. Soldiers were even known to wear amulets made from the pubic hair of such victims, believing that they possessed magical powers against injury. The military policy forbidding rape only encouraged soldiers to kill their victims afterwards. During an interview for the documentary In the Name of the Emperor, Azuma Shiro, a former Japanese soldier, spoke candidly about the process of rape and murder in Nanking. At first, we used some kinky words like P-can-can. Pi means hip, can-can means look, P-can-can means look. Let's see a woman open up her legs. Hip, look, P-can-can. Chinese women didn't wear underpants. Instead, they wore trousers tied with a string. There were no belt. As we pulled the string, the buttocks were exposed. We P-can-can. We looked. After a while, we would say something like, it's my day to take a bath, and we took turns raping them. It would be all night. It would be all right if we only raped them. I shouldn't say all right, but... Hey, stop it. It'd be all right if we only raped them. I shouldn't say all right, but we always stabbed and killed them because dead bodies don't talk. Takokoro Kozo shared Azuma's bluntness in discussing the issue. After raping, we would also kill them, he recalled. Those women would start to flee. Once we let them go, then we would bang, shoot them in the back to finish them up. According to surviving veterans, many of the soldiers felt remarkably little guilt about this. Perhaps when we were raping her, we looked at her as a woman, Azuma wrote, but when we killed her, we just thought of her as something like a pig. This behavior was not restricted to soldiers. Officers at all levels indulged in the orgy. Even Tani Hiseo, the senior general commander of the Japanese 6th Division, was later found guilty of raping some 20 women in Nanking. Some not only urged soldiers to commit gang rape in the city, but warned them to dispose of the women afterwards to eliminate evidence of the crime. Either pay them money or kill them in some out-of-the-way place after you have finished, one officer told his underlings. The arrival of Matsui Iwane. The killing and raping subsided when Matsui Iwane, still weak from his illness, entered the city on the morning of December 17th for a ceremonial parade. After recovering from his bout of tuberculosis, he traveled upriver on a naval launch and rode by car to the triple archway of the mountain gate on the east side of Nanking. There he mounted a chestnut horse, wheeled it to the face, the direction of the Imperial Palace in Tokyo, and led a triple bonsai for the Emperor for Japan's National Radio Broadcasting Company. Great Field Marshal on the steps of heaven. Bonsai, 10,000 years of life. He rode down a boulevard that was carefully cleared of dead bodies and flanked by tens of thousands of cheering soldiers, and arrived at the Metropolitan Hotel in the northern part of town, which held a banquet for Matsui that evening. December 18th, 1937, he told one of his civilian aides, I now realize that we have unknowingly wrought a most grievous effect on this city. When I think of the feelings and sentiments of many of my Chinese friends who have fled from Nanking and of the future of the two countries, I cannot but feel depressed. I'm very lonely and can never get in a mood to rejoice about this victory. He even let a tinge of regret flavor the statement he released to the press that morning. I personally feel sorry for the tragedies to the people, but the army must continue unless China repents. Now in the winter, the season gives time to reflect. I offer my sympathy with deep emotion to a million innocent people. Later that day, when Japanese command held a burial, by Sunday, December 19th, Matsui was moved to Osaka's headquarters outside the city and put on a destroyer that the following day to be sent back to Shanghai. But once there, he made an even more shocking move, one perhaps driven by desperation. He confided his worries to the New York Times and even told an American foreign correspondent that the Japanese army is probably the most undisciplined army in the world today. That month, he also sent a bold message to Prince Asaka's chief of police. It is rumored that unlawful acts continue, he wrote, especially because Prince Asaka is our commander. Military discipline and morals must be that much more strictly maintained. Anyone who misconducts himself must be severely punished. On New Year's Day, Matsui was still upset about the behavior of the Japanese soldiers at Nanking. Over a toast, he confided to a Japanese diplomat, my men have done something very wrong and extremely regrettable. But the raping went on and the killing went on. Matsui seemed incapable of stopping it. If no one can believe the story, Matsui told years later, his brief visit to Nanking even reduced him to tears in front of his colleagues. Immediately after the memorial services, I assembled the higher officers and wept tears of anger before them. Matsui told his Buddhist confessor before his hanging in 1948. Both Prince Asaka and Lieutenant General Yanagawa were there. I told them everything had been lost in one moment through the brutalities of the soldiers. And can you imagine it? Even after that, those soldiers laughed at me. The comfort of women, the legacy of Nanking. One of the most bizarre consequences of the wholesale rape that took place at Nanking was the response of the Japanese government to the massive outcry from Western nations. Rather than stifle or punish the soldiers responsible, the Japanese High Command made plans to create a giant underground system of military prostitution, one that would draw into its web hundreds of thousands of women across Asia. The Japanese Expeditionary Force in central China issued an order to set up comfort houses during this period of time. Yoshiaki, a prominent history professor at Chuo University, observes because Japan was afraid of criticism from China, the United States of America and Europe following the cases of massive rapes between battles in Shanghai and Nanking. The plan was straightforward. So what am I going to do? Just date this on December 17th, 18th, or 19th. Which one was the most important of those dates? Matsui, Iwane, when he came in, he says that it subsided, the raping stopped when he came in. But overall, he couldn't stop the thing. December 18th, he said, oh shit, I think we might have fucked up. And then even says, I feel sorry for the tragedies, but we have to continue until China repents. He says, never before had a superior given his officer such a scathing reprimand. And then he says on December 19th to the New York Times that the Japanese army is the most undisciplined army in the world today. So he just kind of said one, two things. So I think him coming into the city, the arrival of Matsui, Iwane, is December 17th, 1937. 1937, so this is before World War II. What the hell's going on with China and Japan before World War II? Well, I got this Wikipedia page here. Let's go ahead and just read what it says. So this book was written in 1997. It's a best-selling nonfiction book, meaning it's true, written by Iris Chang about the 1937 to 1938 Nanking Massacre. So 7 to 38. This was a pretty despicable, awful, freaking... Yeah, god damn. God damn. In terms of total warfare, I mean, this reminds me of Thanksgiving, the Pequot War. Instead of attacking the warriors, they went and attacked the pilgrims, the Christian pilgrims, the Puritan pilgrims, the good Puritan Christian believers of Jesus Christ. Love, peace, and brotherhood amongst all men. Went and murdered 700 old men, women, and children. All the warriors were gone, so the strong men, the warriors, were out. But they went to that sleeping village at the Mystic River in 1937. No, 1637 was the massacre of Mystic River. So that's the English. That was the English. That was the British. That was the English, the British. And that was against the Pequot. For some bullshit reasons. Frankly, because they were the strongest. And then they declared a day of Thanksgiving right after that. So that was 700 people, right? So how many people are going to be killed in the... the mass murder and mass rape of Chinese civilians committed by the Imperial Japanese Army in Nanking. So the Nanking Massacre happened 1937 to 38. Chinese civilians by the Imperial Japanese Army. So that's under the Emperor. The Imperial Japanese Army, is that also royalist? So under the Emperor, is that also the King Emperor guy? The capital of the Republic of China. So shit, the Japanese went to the capital of China, the Republic of China, and immediately after the Battle of Nanking during the Sino-Japanese War, it describes the event leading up to the Nanking Massacre. Nanking provides a graphic detail of the war crimes and atrocities committed by the Japanese troops and lambasts the Japanese government for its refusal to appropriately rectify the atrocities. It also criticized the Japanese people for their ignorance about the massacre. It's one of the first major English language books to introduce the Nanking Massacre to Western and Eastern readers alike. It's been translated into several languages. The book significantly renewed public interest in Japanese wartime conduct in China, Korea, the Philippines, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific. The book received both acclaim and criticism by the public and by academics. It's been praised as a work that shows more clearly than any previous account the extent and brutality of the episode, while elements of Chang's analysis of the motivations for the events, Japanese culture, and her calculation of the total numbers killed and raped were criticized as inaccurate. Criticized as inaccurate because of her lack of training as a historian. Chang's research on the book was credited with a finding on the diaries of John Rabe and Minnie Vautrin, both of whom played important roles in The Nanking Safety Zone, a designated area, Nanking, that protected Chinese civilians during the Nanking Massacre. Nanking should be remembered not only for the number of people slaughtered, but for the cruel manner in which they met their deaths. Chinese men were used for bayonet practice and in decapitation contests. An estimated 20 to 80,000 Chinese women were raped. Many soldiers went beyond rape to disembowel women, slice off their breasts, and nail them alive to walls. Fathers were forced to rape their daughters and sons their mothers as other family members watched. Not only did live burials, castration, the carving of organs, and the roasting of people become routine, but the more diabolical tortures were practiced, such as hanging people by their tongues on iron hooks or burying people to their waist and watching them get torn apart by German shepherds. So sickening was the spectacle that even Nazis in the city were horrified, one proclaiming the massacre to be the work of bestial machinery. The book prompted AOL executive Ted Leonsis to fund and produce Nanking, a 2007 documentary film about the eponymous massacre. So now let's go to the Second Sino-Japanese War, because how long did this war? We don't have internet, so we are left to wonder. Why is Japan and China even at war to begin with? And Jesus fucking Christ, huh? Jesus fucking Christ. So December 17th, 1937. Matsui, Iwane, entered Nanking. Is he a general or something? Great Field Marshal? What the fuck can you say about this? There's tens of thousands that was killed in Mariupol in Ukraine. Tens of thousands were killed in Mariupol. So I don't know how many total they said that was killed in Nanking. Does it say in here? It probably says at the end, right? Like all the stats and the numbers and whatnot. I guess I have to find out later. But that's pretty fucking graphic. Here's a picture. It says within weeks, 300,000 Chinese people were raped, tortured, and murdered. It's a death toll that's bigger than Hiroshima and Nagasaki combined. So, fucking shit.